Alright everyone, Cowboy Trades here, welcome back to the channel for another update on Solana. So I did just want to get a quick update out post FOMC meeting, talking about my $5 price target and also talking about how I feel with the markets going on right now. So we're going to start off on the higher time frames, talk about some volume profiles, moving averages. We're going to zoom in and talk about some Fibonacci's, Sol BTC pairs, oscillators, give you a quick heads up on what I think is going to be happening in the next 6 hours with the FOMC meeting, and we'll wrap up on a tiny bit of Elliott wave theory and also just quickly checking out some on-chain metrics. So like I said, let's start off on the higher time frames and we'll work our way to the lower time frames as we go past. Now I'm going to clear this chart up for a second and we're going to start by talking about what's happening with the moving averages. Now let's first of all start off on the bull market support bands. I'm going to fly through these because the bull market support bands and the EMA ribbons are telling a very similar story. For both of them, you obviously topped out around about that $260 price target for Solana, but with the bull market support bands, you can see over here, once we reverted above the bull market support bands at around about $140, we've absolutely been nuking to the downside since then, and this is the second time, obviously not including the time where we were in a bull market and we topped out above the bull market support bands, because once we clearly broke beneath them and back tested them as resistance, this is really when the bear market was 100% confirmed. So with this, you can see Solana has quite recently pushed above the bull market support bands, and when we should be coming back for that back test and pushing back up further, it looks like we are pushing down quite harshly right now. So the bottom of the bull market support bands around about $21.78, any lower than $21.50, and it's going to be starting to look pretty ugly for Solana. And you can also see another time where we did revert back into about the heart line of the bull market support bands, and you can also see once we came in and then once we fell beneath, so over here as well, you can see once you fell beneath, there was a huge move to the downside, which soon happened. Now, like I said, I'm going to fly through this because the EMA ribbons are also telling a very similar story. You can see you topped out over here, poked your head above the EMA ribbons over here, nuked to the downside. Over here, you almost touched the short-term moving average. In here, you came into the short-term moving average and you lost it. So while we're still waiting for that, I can't really call it support, while we're still waiting for the lower bound of the bull market support bands to break round about $21.50, the weekly EMA ribbons at $24.40 have already been pushed above, came back down for a back test and lost. So definitely not looking good for Solana right now. Let's move on to the next chart, revert over here. Let's hide the moving averages. Now, in terms of the volume profiles, we've talked about these areas that are in light blue over here. There's a big volume cluster right here, there's a big volume cluster right here, and this isn't particularly a big volume cluster, but I've highlighted this because once you fall beneath this volume cluster, volume really starts to taper off to the downside. And as we've previously discussed, when you come into these areas like here where there's not much data traded, in a bull run you have a quick move to the upside once you manage to get above this consolidation on the volume profiles. And in a bear market, when you're holding support at this range, when you're holding support at this range, as soon as you fall into this area of no man's land on the volume, very quick moves happen back down to the downside, and it looks like we could be getting ready for something like that again. Now, the same way that we quite recently broke down to this volume profile at 450, the market started moving back up. Vitalik Buterin started to, or in one tweet, he tweeted out his support for Solana, and of course, the rest is history. We came all the way back up to this volume profile, and we'll talk about this in terms of the range lows in just 1 second, but what's very important to note is, once again, this is another area of support being lost right now. This is a big area of volume, and if we zoom in on the daily, you can really start to see that we're really holding the bottom of this floor, and it looks like we're creating a rounding top, potentially a bark pattern, getting ready to break back down to my $5 price target in the higher time frames. Now, the $5 price target is a psychological level. If you're looking for a specific level to back up that price target, you do have this huge volume profile down here at 450. You've also got a wick round about 480. So there's going to be a lot of interest around about this $5 region. And if I clear up the chart, you can actually see there is a touch point over here at $5. So you've got touch points at $5, you've got psychological levels at $5, you've got touch points at 480, you've got volume profiles at $4.50. And all in all, I do not believe the bear market's over yet, and we'll talk about, another example of that with the Elliott wave theory in just 1 second. Now, As we discussed, if we remove this chart, you can also see where we really came up to was right here. You know, range lows, range lows, range lows, range lows, range lows, range lows. We broke beneath it for the first time since the 29th of March 2021. People don't realize that, you know, with this most recent pump, we are retesting 679-day support, and we're coming back up, back testing it, and it now looks like we're breaking down for resistance. So this is definitely not a good sign. And also, if we're looking at the not lower time frames, this is also the weekly, but if we're zooming in, let's get rid of this. Get rid of this very quickly. You can also see a similar situation over here. Since the quote-unquote bottom was in over in June, this was your $17,600 Bitcoin. You can see, you know, we back-tested the range lows, you back-tested the range lows, you lost them, and we've just come up and retested these range lows, and it looks like we've had a harsh rejection as we get ready to move back down to the downside. A lot of the oscillators on the higher time frames as well, like the stochastic RSI, are really not looking too good as we do start to push back down to the downside from this range. And in terms of how this is in terms of the Fibonacci's, let's clear up this one. Over here, you can see we're reverting from this range over here, which was, you know, your $17,600 Bitcoin, quote-unquote bottom, your $26, $25 Solana bottom. You can see, you know, we've held the lows, and this is also, you know, in correlation to this red box, we've broken back down and reverted to the 1 fib. And also, if we get rid of this quickly and look at the swing high before Solana really started melting down, what you can actually see is a perfect bearish retest of a 618 Fibonacci. You can see we've broken to the downside, found a bottom over here, created a W pattern, bounced back up to resistance, range lows, volume profiles, bull market support bands, EMA ribbons, and we're now getting stuck and pushed down from the 618 Fibonacci. So this is also definitely not a good look. Now, Sol BTC, if we look at Sol BTC, I've got two fibs here. One Fibonacci from this huge explosion over here, and one explosion from basically the bear market lows round about December 2020 for Solana. And when we do draw these two Fibonacci's, you can see we do have a double 786 Fibonacci very close to each other right here. I just wanted to give you two different fib examples, but with both of these, this first fib up here, which is in correlation to this swing low, we absolutely beautifully came back and retested the 786 and we got rejected. And even if we're looking at the other Fibonacci from the range lows, which is correlating to this swing low down here, this 786 Fibonacci, you can see we're also breaking to the downside of this Sol BTC fib. And of course, you know, this makes a lot of sense if we do come over to the Bitcoin dominance. This is not the Bitcoin dominance. Bitcoin dominance right here. Bitcoin dominance has been on a rampage for, you know, the past few weeks, at least arguably. So, you know, Bitcoin is looking like it really wants to start outperforming altcoins. And if we do get that FOMC meeting come out 50 basis points, the markets will start to turn back round bearish. And of course, Bitcoin's going to outperform altcoins and Bitcoin's not going to perform well itself, then this Solana BTC pair is probably going to have a nasty meltdown. We're probably going to come all the way back down about another 62% to these previous swing highs up here in August of 2020. Now, quickly flying through the oscillators. On the weekly time frame, you can see not necessarily a linear downtrend at this moment in time, but we are still making lower lows on the MFI. The further we push up on the MFI, this isn't indicative that we're bullish. It simply means that the money flow index is becoming more and more overextended. It's not a good sign to see the MFI push up and up and up and up and up. It's an indicator that money is flowing into the markets too quickly. And, you know, the MFI is really like the RSI, but it also takes into account volume overextensions. And right now, you know, we've basically gone from 11 to, you know, 66 very quickly. So this is looking topped out. The stochastic RSI, which we just pulled up a second ago, is the highest it's been since the 6th of September 2021, which correlated to this first peak over on Solana. Wasn't quite its all-time high. It was literally right here, just before we topped out. So a very good call on the higher time frames for the stochastic RSI. And the stock right now, the blue moving average, short-term moving average, is turning down very quickly, and it's looking like we're going to get a bearish cross on this very soon. Squeeze momentum indicator is basically at the point where we're at the heart line resetting momentum. The last time this happened was right here. We pushed up, became completely flat, reset momentum, and then what happened? Well, we were at $33 and we went all the way down to $8. So the weekly time frame is definitely looking extremely bearish for the oscillators. However, daily time frame is a little bit of a mixed picture. Now, while the MFI is also looking super overextended because we've just come up to 89 and we are above the heart line still at this moment in time, you can see the squeeze momentum indicator on the daily is also giving a bearish signal. You can see, you know, once again, when you see light green popping up, this is indicative that bulls are taking control. And, you know, since we started topping out, creating this rounding top Bart Simpson looking type pattern over on the Solana USD pair, you can see that we've started to put in dark green, and it's indicative that we should be getting for that. We should be getting ready for that next move back down to the downside, just like we have in these previous instances over here when we do start flipping back into light red. Now, the only thing that's not in agreement with this is the daily stochastic RSI. Now, the daily stochastic RSI can be a little bit finicky. Sometimes it can fire incorrect signals, but this is just something to take into consideration. The stochastic RSI is currently saying that we should be getting ready for a bounce, even if it's in the lower time frames, maybe an hour or two before the FOMC meeting, but then that could be topped out. There have been instances where over here, the stochastic RSI bottomed and called a very nice rally, but there's also instances like, for example, the previous data point over here, where it was calling for a huge rally, and you can actually see it went from the bottom all the way back up to the top, indicative that it's overextended. But all we did is have a baby bounce, break down lower, baby bounce, and break down even lower. So, you know, do take that into consideration when you are looking at the stochastic RSI. All in all, the oscillators that we've looked at 6 different 3 different oscillators, but on 6 different occasions. So we've looked at 6 of these, and 5 out of 6 of them are bearish, and, you know, 1 of these is indicative that we could have a little bit of a rally. But, you know, all in all, the main takeaway is what happens with the FOMC meeting. If we do get 25 basis points, then this stochastic RSI bounce can definitely happen. We can get a little bit of a push up before that next meltdown. But if we do get that 50 basis point increase, then of course, you know, these 5 out of 6 oscillators saying that we're going to start breaking down are probably going to be likely to be calling for the correct signal. And that is, of course, what I do believe as well. Now, let's wrap up the video on a quick update of this WXY double free structure. I did an extensive video on this on my channel the other day, 13 days ago over here. So I did just want to give you a quick update on this. Now, if you haven't heard of this before and you want to know how it's a little bit different from your typical, you know, Elliott wave ABC zigzag forecast, which is, you know, typical in a bear market, ABC, and you've got microwaves constituting this. You've got, you know, your 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 into wave A, ABC correction up to wave B, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 down to your final wave C. This is a little bit different. This is a WXY double free structure. You can see this is actually made up of 2 zigzag patterns. So you would have your 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ABC, or sorry, you'd have a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ABC, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that is your first macro ABC. You've got a zigzag pattern to the left, you've got a zigzag pattern to the right, hence the name the double, because you've got a double zigzag. But it's called a double free because you have a different type of Elliott wave bounce known as an any free, and this doesn't have to be your typical ABC to the downside or ABC to the upside. It's really any free wave counts that matter. So for example, when we do zoom out in the higher time frames where the bear market lows were pretty much put in on the 21st of December, you can see we've got a very beautiful 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 macro Elliott wave count, very unambiguous with this wave count over here. But then you come over and you can see what's happening right now. You can see we've got the zigzag on the left side right here, and in my opinion, I think we're forming the right side of the zigzag, and we've also already formed the any free. So I'll show you. You can see this is your typical, you know, you've got a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 into wave A, ABC correction up to wave B. I'll just show you the higher wave count, to be honest, but you can see A, B, C, and this forms your first W. So you can see with this WXY double free structure, it's really a big ABC. So it's kind of like a WXY, and this is obviously like an ABC. So if we do clear up this chart, this is really from the top here, something like this, an A, B, and then the C should be somewhere round about here. But if we pull this back up, this is a WXY. You can see from this ABC, then you had your any free. You had an ABC slanted to the side. Once again, it doesn't have to be a zigzag pattern as in ABC or ABC. Any free wave will be completely fine with this. But since we topped out at wave C over here and we completed the move from W to X, we're now in the move from X to Y. And as you can see, since wave C was put in, we had a monumental break down to $8, this was your A wave. We had a big pump up, we had a big pump back up to wave B, and now as we're turning down, you know, we've looked at a lot of different charts talking about how we're getting stuck at many different resistances, range lows, Fibonacci pairs, Sol BTC is getting rejected from some crucial levels, oscillators getting ready to turn down, the FOMC meeting is right around the corner, and with this, it's looking like we should be turning down, and this should be the top of wave B before heading back down to wave C. Now, do bear in mind, you know, according to this Elliott wave theory, this should really be calling the bear market lows within the last rally. So, you know, a lot of people sometimes see my predictions for lower price targets and call me a hater. That is, you know, absolutely ridiculous. My profile picture on YouTube is a Solana NFT, and the only reason why I cover it on my channel is because it is something that I am interested in. I think it's got a bright future, and I want to be able to buy it for cheap. I didn't want to buy it, you know, $150, $100, $50. I don't even want to buy now at $25. I didn't want to buy it, you know, $8. I want to start buying around about $5, $4.50. That is really where my open interest in the market starts to pick up, and I do think that's going to create a great opportunity for the next cycle. So this is really, you know, down at these levels where this huge volume profile is down here, this is where everyone's going to start to say Solana is going to zero, and when people start saying that, that is when I'm going to start buying. You know, throughout this entire cycle from $250, people on crypto Twitter, especially in the NFT community, have been saying, you know, $500 this year. Okay, it didn't happen this year. We're going to have Solana summer, right? $1,000 Solana summer, and then by the time summer kind of came through, you know, we were nowhere near that $1,000 mark, and then everyone was saying buy at $50, and when we broke down to $8, I started to see people then say Solana is now going to zero. Why do you want to buy Solana now? Solana's going to zero. But now, very quickly, we've snapped back into extreme greed in these markets. So I think once we come down and Bitcoin has that final capitulation down to, you know, 12,000, 10,000, 14,000, whatever you think it is, I think it's going to be around about 12 to 14,000. That is where I believe Solana is going to come down to 450, and with that, that's when my open interest in the market will really start to pick back up. So also just super quickly running through some of the on-chain metrics. You can read, you know, a lot of these, but all I really want to point out in terms of the on-chain metrics is the growth in the network is still heavily diminishing. So you can see, you know, non-vote transactions falling to the downside, non-vote transactions monthly falling to the downside, number of active addresses all time absolutely melting through the floorboards. On the yearly, they had a huge run up to the upside when the Bonk airdrop came out, and that also makes sense because, you know, people like myself received a decent amount of money from the Bonk airdrop, and then we were reactivating our wallets. You know, there were new active addresses on the network, mainly from people just degeneratively gambling with Bonk, or maybe like myself, they were just selling out of the market because they got a free airdrop. But, you know, nonetheless, we did have that big spike in active addresses in January. But since then, we've already started to turn down quite a bit. Number of active addresses on the network monthly. Once again, in January, they had that move back up because of Bonk, but in the higher time frames, still very much moving to the downside. Number of new addresses on the yearly turning down on all time. They are melting through the floorboards. Number of new addresses monthly. Once again, you can see a little bit of a spike up in January due to Bonk, but, you know, all in all, Solana value moved on chain. This is a nasty one. If we look at the all-time on the left, you can just see that we're basically at zero right now. I mean, the value that used to be in this network was ridiculous. You know, on-chain volume one time was sitting around about 3 trillion in one day, and now we're sitting around about 1.5 billion. So, you know, the network growth has definitely diminished, and, you know, this is the same chart, but this is on the monthly. What's also interesting is if we do even come down to, you know, the yearly time frame, year to date, and just kind of focus on the past, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months, you can see even in the past 6 months, not even looking at this, you know, huge bull run that happened in March, just looking at the past 6 months, the value that is on this chain is just dropping and dropping and dropping and dropping and dropping, which is a very telltale sign, a very big warning that, especially with something like Solana, which, you know, should be having a lot of on-chain value moved around, it is not good to see that a scalable blockchain is having, you know, all of its resources zapped out of it at this moment in time. So this doesn't mean, once again, that I don't like Solana. I'm a big fan of this. I think this is going to go to, you know, probably $500 or maybe more, maybe $1,000. We'll have to reevaluate that when the bull market comes around. I do think it's very, very likely that Solana will do something like this, and then obviously not in a straight path, but something like this into the next cycle. I do think Solana is going to come up to $500, and that will be more than 100x if you are, you know, looking to buy around about this $4.50 price target associated with these volume profiles. So like I said, just wanted to give you an update on Solana. Probably dragged out a little bit longer than I wanted to, but nonetheless, I had quite a few things I did want to run through with you. So that's all I've got for you today, my friends. Keep an eye on the FOMC meeting. If we do get 50 basis points, it's looking like we could snap down much quicker than anticipated. But for today, that's all I've got for you. It's been your boy Cowboy Trades. If you enjoy the content, let me know down below by leaving a like and a comment. Share the videos with your friends, and if you do want more of my posts, charts, memes, economic data, all that good stuff, be sure to head over to my Twitter at 618_cowboy. All I've got for you today. Cowboy out. Peace.